What is up, my wonderful tribe of weirdos that listen to this Weird and Strong podcast? I'm your host, Jeremy Gernsteiner. I am so excited for you to be here. First of all, because you are you, and I love that you listen to us here on this Weird and Strong podcast. Also, I'm excited because Zach Barney is joining us today. He's such a fantastic man to be around. I was lucky enough to spend some time with him in October at the Unlifted event, and we got to know each other on a deeper level. We hadn't really met before, just through Instagram, exchanged some messages, and we spent a lot of quality time getting to know each other. And this podcast dove even deeper into that, getting to hear about his adventure in his life and where that has carried him into being a coach and helping men transform their lives. So, without further ado, let's get weird, folks. All right, welcoming my brother, Zach Barney, back to the Weird and Strong podcast for the first time. I'm saying back because I just got to see him last week and we got to hang out a bunch, and it was so fun and so cool. So, how you doing today, brother?
Yeah, grateful to be here. And yeah, we had such a beautiful time in Richmond. Like, I was really grateful to have a chance to connect with you, connect with so many lighthearted beings that are just like have so much to share. And it's been beautiful to really integrate that coming back. And I'm still traveling and continue the adventure. I know that's something that came up for us during the weekend. It's like, so yeah, grateful to be here.
100%. And we will be chatting more about this idea of adventure and travel, because I know that's going to come up in the conversation. As we start off, everybody, I have a weird question for you. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine that from now on, you can only communicate using one word. What one word are you going to choose? You'll only be able to say this one word for the rest of your life to communicate. Mm-hmm. What one word are you going to choose? Flow?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any reason why?
It rhymes. It would have rhymed with other words, though. Also, I just imagine just in my life, I always ask people like, how's it flowing? And I would just imagine myself being everywhere I go is flow.
Yeah. How you doing today, Zach? Flow. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Zach, you want to go for dinner? Flow.
Exactly that. Yeah.
That's a cool one. I like that a lot. Definitely not expected. You had that one ready to go right there. You thought about this.
I'm thinking about it like every day.
Got it.
Yeah.
Very cool. So let's talk more about you. And so we talked a little bit about this travel, this idea of adventure, and tell us a little bit. So you live in Colombia, and you're not from Colombia. How did that tell us the story of how that all transpired? Like, where did this pull to live elsewhere come from? Like, where did it start?
Yeah, I want to dive straight to the moment where I felt that I was going to do this forever.
Yeah.
And it was 2015. I had landed in Rio for my stay abroad program. And out of nowhere, I was on the bus going from the airport to the city, and I started crying.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere, like literally, I started crying on the bus. And I wasn't someone that was very emotional. Like, I cry all the time at that moment. And I was traditionally raised, being an athlete, football player, you can't show your emotions. Men don't cry. And here I am on the bus, Rio 2015, and I'm crying. Like, I had no idea in that moment what was happening. I was like, I'm just feeling these feelings.
Yeah.
And
so with some time behind you with that, what was happening? What were you realizing?
Mm-hmm. So that moment, I would say, was my soul starting to awaken. And also it was my ancestors cheering me on, saying like, "We're proud of you. You're doing something new. You're taking this big leap. You're starting to heal yourself. You're starting to really work on yourself." And before that, I had just followed the traditional path of my generation, right? Go to school, get good grades, play sports, you go to college, get a scholarship. Afterwards, you would, you know, graduate, get the best job, and make a lot of money, get your house, have your family, have your things. That was the path I was on.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went to Brazil for the first time, it was the first time I had jumped off that path.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so powerful. Those first months in Brazil, I knew that this is what I wanted to do for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I did.
Cool. So what actually, you talked about this traditional path or this typical path that many of us take. What led you to Brazil in the first place?
So before that, it was an intuitive nudge from my soul. Looking back, I can see it as my intuition, my soul was guiding me to Brazil. I always knew I wanted to travel. I always knew that I wanted to explore new countries, new cultures, learn languages, all these things. And also at the same time, growing up, my biggest challenge was actually in school was learning a foreign language. So I knew Spanish was a really important language, and I took Spanish. Though when I was in school, it was like the hardest thing for me to learn Spanish.
Yeah.
And so I decided before I went to Brazil, is like, I'm going to learn Portuguese. Like I'm going to throw Spanish out the door. And,
Yeah.
and I said, like, I'm going to do something completely new. All right, Portuguese, it's similar to Spanish, though it's not exactly the same language. It's something I can start fresh, start new, and immerse myself in. And then the intuitive nudge from my soul was saying, all right, the best way to learn this thing is going to be go use it, like go to Brazil. And had no idea that it would be not only that I would learn a new language, also I learned a new lifestyle, a new way of life, a new way of being. And that was really the goal of my time in Brazil. That first trip was like, this is the way I want to live. This is what I want to cultivate. It showed me a bigger vision for my life.
That's super cool. And with all of that, like getting into this new culture, getting into this new language, and feeling this need or this pull towards continuing this journey for yourself, how did that transpire, and how did that continue to lead you to where you are today?
Yeah, so by the end of that time in Brazil, I knew I wanted to come back. So I had one semester left until I graduated college, and it was the biggest synchronicity. It was like 1 month before I was going to go back to the United States to finish college, and in that final month, I met this guy named Adam Newman. We were on a hike in the favelas, in the mountains, like on an adventure already.
Yeah.
And this guy's like, hey, so like I have this hostel, I'm doing these projects, I'm supporting favelas. And I was like, all these things, like, this is so interesting. I want to do something like that and be a part of something like that. And then I just asked him, like, yeah, I would love to come back during the 2016 Olympics and be a part of your hostel and support and volunteer. So I told him, I put my intention out there, and he was like, sure, come. Like right after you graduate, just come down. So like literally the week after I graduated, I was down in Rio again. And what I discovered in 2016 during the Olympics was a lot about the power of community. And living in the favelas, people would say like, don't go there. Outside people would say, you shouldn't go there. it's dangerous. What are you doing?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I was like, go there. My intuition, my soul was like, go there. You're doing this right.
Hmm.
You're building, there's something there. And so I went there, and I saw that the people there were all like working together to solve their challenges. They're very open to share. You walk
Hmm.
down the street and you can just be like, "What's up?" to any person and be like, "Hey, what's up?" And you get to know your neighbors, and I felt so at home during that time. It was just so natural. And I mean, also during that time, I had a big afro, and and people started to just see me as Brazilian. So I was
Hmm.
like, oh, like I'm welcome here into this culture. I learned Portuguese. I got even better at the language, and it inspired me to keep doing that, to keep going and keep growing myself.
Hmm. So when you were growing, like looking at this concept of like this greater community of like getting to know your neighbors, and like this experience that you had in the favelas, like uh, was that was that a similar circumstance to when you were growing up? Was that did you really know your neighbors really well growing up?
It was a complete opposite.
Yeah.
Like literally, so growing up, I was disconnected from everyone.
Hmm.
Uh, I grew up in a mostly white suburban community. I was the only mixed kid. You know, people would ask me like where are you from? Like what? All these things. I'm
Like
like,
down the street.
yeah, and I mean, I'm growing up, and it's like I don't even know. My parents never really explained to me where they were from. They weren't really investigating that at the moment, and yeah, I was really much outsider. I was a stranger in my own, uh, home in a way.
Hmm.
And even growing up, even now, I go back, and it still feels a little strange because I really got used to that way of interacting with your neighbors, like building community, being with other people throughout the day.
Hmm.
And here in the US, it's completely the opposite. And even when you seek community, it's can be pretty challenging to find community and find uh, that relationship
Hmm.
with your neighbors and with the people that you live around. So
Yeah.
it was a big challenge growing up, was just feeling overall very disconnected from myself, and even within my house, like feeling disconnected from my family. And it wasn't like the education system isn't creating that. They're not teaching us specifically how to build these relationships with ourselves and with our emotions. And so, yeah, so going to Brazil was really heart opening. Like
Hmm.
literally, like my heart started opening, and I felt I felt so healthy. I felt so whole while I was
Yeah.
there.
That's super cool. And it's like I think that there was something that you just said earlier of like this concept of like the favelas being dangerous. And like, well, if you're getting to know the people around you, is that more or less dangerous than if you're living in a neighborhood in the US and you know nobody around you? Like
Hmm.
it's like
Hmm.
on reflection, I take a look back at that and I go, I have no idea if the person next to me is uh, some sort of crazy extremist or not. I've really no idea who the people who live around me are.
Hmm.
And it's like that seems, in hindsight, a lot more dangerous than any other circumstances.
Yeah, something that's coming up for me too is what we define as safe,
Yeah.
right? What is it today that we define as safe? Is safe mean you're all alone by yourself and you have like comfort and all the things and a lot of money and you're
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, I'm safe now?
Mm-hmm.
Or is safety um, seen as like, oh, you have people that support you, you have community, you're supported, you have everything that you need and more. Like you're,
Mm.
being able to grow food and connect with the earth and, connect with the people around you.
Mhm.
So I think that's really important thing to look at too, is like, what is safety? What does it mean to be safe?
Yeah, I've heard it aptly described as what we do, especially in the US or Western countries, is we create a shiny room in hell for ourselves. We've got all the shiny gadgets, we've got all the things that make us feel really comfortable, but we don't realize how disconnected we are. We don't realize how unfulfilled we are because, everything's nice and shiny and new and comfortable.
Yeah, comfort is the thief of growth.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
it like takes our growth away. It's like we want to grow. Our souls want to grow, and comfort's like, oh, like no, but it's good here. Like I
Mhm.
got all these things, all the these pleasurable things, and why would I do that thing, that challenge?
So what has this lack of comfortability or this lack of familiarity with travel shown you?
I say first the power of my own communication.
Mhm.
There's moments that aren't necessarily like, let's say, dangerous. They're not dangerous. There's moments where you feel fear when you're
Mhm.
traveling,
Yeah.
and a lot of times that's the way to overcome that fear and things that come up while traveling has to do with first our communication with ourselves. Mastering that communication like with ourselves. And during my travels, I started journaling and writing down my thoughts and writing down my feelings. And that really was super helpful in my journey. The other thing is communication with others, with people that you encounter. Because say there's something that you need, like actually something you need, like, oh, uh, say you cut yourself, or say you need to buy food, or you're looking for water, or you need directions, then you're an outsider. So it's really important to notice how you communicate with others, and notice that through communication you can get your needs met. Though if you try to do everything by yourself, it's so much more harder. Like it's much more challenging to get your needs met.
Or try to like telepathically like ask for everything and hope everybody understands what you're asking for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's the communal aspect of travel is so much fun. It's so much fun. It's like you're you could land at a hostel or a community center, a house, and then you start, inviting each other to do stuff. Like there's a beach. Like, hey,
Mhm.
do you want to go to the beach? Or there's this party or this event, this gathering coming up. Would you like to go? And then you just go together, and there's no need to like coordinate as much like on your phone. It's more
Mhm.
like, oh, I'm going to lunch. Do you want to go right now? Like
Mhm.
that is something that I love about community, is like it invites presence as well.
Mhm. Yeah. There's a lot less of the um scheduling and all the things that, you know, for me, having lived in Germany, like that is the way things are. It's like we need to schedule this a month in advance, and everybody needs to know where we are. Yeah, there's a much more fluidity, especially I've heard of folks who've immigrated from South America in particular. They're like the Germans are so closed off and rigid in that way. Like it's like, okay,
Mhm.
like figure out how to navigate that even in different cultures. So this is like, thank you for sharing all of that. So through all these travels, primarily in Brazil, like what led you into Colombia, and what do you love about Colombia?
All right, so this is the journey here.
Yeah.
So Brazil, I was living in Brazil teaching English, and some of my friends, they were sitting in ayahuasca ceremonies.
Mm-hmm.
One of my friends wrote a blog post about his first journey with ayahuasca. And that, when I read that post, I just was like, what is this? Like, this
Mm-hmm.
is something else. Like, and my soul, it was my soul also being like, go, like, explore this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was listening a few weeks later to Tim Ferriss, and he was interviewing Aubrey Marcus. I had no idea who Aubrey Marcus was at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then he mentions ayahuasca.
Mm-hmm.
And then after he mentioned ayahuasca, I checked out his podcast and like went all the way to the beginning episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw he was speaking a lot about his journeys with plant medicine, his journeys in Peru and other places where, he's sitting and healing himself. And he also shared a lot of tools and tips to be able to prepare yourself for ayahuasca and for deeper plant medicine journeys. So from that, I started preparing myself for my first ayahuasca journey. And that was in 2018. And it was one of the deepest moments of my life. It was so healing, so profound. I remember all night just crying, 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 releasing, connecting with the earth, connecting with my ancestors. And what I was healing and what I was releasing was a lot with my connection with the men in my life. So my dad, and ancestrally, my grandfather, great grandfather, and releasing a lot of the trapped emotions that they didn't release. So I
Mm-hmm.
was being a channel and allowing myself to release those emotions, and it was deeply healing. And a lot of different insights were revealed to me in that first journey. And I knew the importance of integration. So then my integration journey started right after that first ceremony. And,
Mm-hmm.
I was really focused on changing my lifestyle, improving my relationships, improving my life. And then almost each month, I would sit in a ceremony. So I would use this as my deeper spiritual practice to really get to know myself. And just progressively, I just started building, building, building. The synchronicities became even more clear for me. I got more clarity and direction in my life until the point where, so I moved a couple times, but basically from Brazil, I had to Peru to do
Mm-hmm.
my first dieta. Dieta is a traditional way of working with plants,
Okay.
and it's a way of cleansing yourself. And so I did dieta with
Mm.
Marosa, which was 21 days. The first 7 days was actually just a really deep process of cleaning. Like we drank this mixture of tobacco
Mm-hmm.
plus Marosa tea. So it's used. You drink it. The healers, they sing and put their ichiros, their healing energy into it, and then you sit by yourself and you let the medicines do their work. And it's like during that time, it was just like all night, like letting go, purging, clearing myself, clearing my vessel, and I felt so light leaving that dieta. And very connected with ayahuasca as a sacred medicine. And I knew that it was super important to integrate everything that I had received in
Mm-hmm.
that time and also from the previous journeys. So in that integration process, I was in Cusco, Peru,
Mm-hmm.
and I was staying at this place called the Healing House in Cusco. And it was this center where they have like, yoga classes and ecstatic dance. They call it sacred dance.
Mm-hmm.
And all these community gatherings, they'd have a community potluck every week.
Very cool.
And it was just like community. That was my integration. It's like
Mm-hmm.
community, holistic living. I was listening to Paul Chek, Living
Mm-hmm.
4D with Paul Chek, and practicing how to eat, move, and be healthy. So like I was really fully in my dream, in my vision. Like my life was my dream. It still is. Those very much in like the fantasized dream of like travel, be in community. I was starting to blog and write about my experiences, share what I'm
Mhm.
doing, like working with retreat centers also. So it's
Mhm.
like a lot of that was already happening. So
Yeah.
let's look at the buildup. That's 2019. So
Hmm.
it gets interesting here. Uh, my soul nudges me to Colombia next, end
Okay.
of 2019. 2020, I arrive to Colombia for the first time. January, it was like January 4th, I think, 2020.
Hmm.
I arrived to Bogota, and in that time, I was still planning to connect with more the indigenous healing ways, and so I want to do that in Colombia. I The first person I met, my friend, his name is Daniel, and with Daniel, he took me to this sacred lake for a hike. It
Hmm.
was like this hike to this sacred lake where we do these different spiritual practices and prayer and yoga. And up at that hike, there is a yoga teacher leading and guiding us through this like beautiful practice. Uh, and well, that yoga teacher, I ended up dating in like during the pandemic times where everything was shut down.
Hmm.
And then we got married last year. So so
Hey.
it's like yeah, so like that was a full circle. Uh, the first people that like the people I met in Colombia really just, uh, they were really special. I felt the energy. I was just like, I want to be here. And I felt
Hmm.
so much at home in Colombia. And yeah, I was just following the synchronicity, following that alignment. And of course, yeah, 2020, everything shut down. So
Hmm.
I had a lot of time for myself
Hmm.
and to get it was less about getting clear about what I want because I knew what I wanted. I still know what I want. It was a time for me to go deeper and to integrate all the things I had experienced in like the previous 3 years
Hmm.
working with the medicine.
Yeah.
And that time period though also it was really essential because I wouldn't have connected with my wife if it weren't for the like things being shut down because I was so like on the move, like
Hmm.
traveling, thinking about where's the next country,
Were
like
you?
what's the
Yeah.
next project, all these things.
Yeah. I was gonna
And
say,
so
was the idea to then take time and settle down in Colombia, or were you looking at, I'm gonna stay in Colombia for a few months and then go on to the next place?
yeah, it's only they have a 6 month limit.
Sure. Yep.
So for normal tourists. So I was planning, okay, I arrive January, I'm gonna leave like before June.
Hmm. Yeah.
And then March, everything shut down and I was like, I'm not going back to the United States. I
Yeah.
know that.
So
And I was
like,
like, yeah.
what was that? We've, I mean, I've heard the perspective of what it was like here, but like, what was what was that shutdown like to live through in another country?
Yeah, it was really actually like very peaceful.
Hmm.
It was for me, it was very peaceful. I also am someone that during that time didn't follow the rules. And, and so it was very peaceful. So there's no airplanes in Bogota flying over Bogota. There
Yeah.
was barely any cars in the streets, and
Hmm.
all the park. I lived really close to this beautiful park, and I would just go on a walk. I would just go walks every single day, and it
Hmm.
was so beautiful because there was like no cars, like no people, and I would spend some time meditating out there. Um, when I was in my own space. I would cook a lot of my own meals, do yoga, uh, meditate. My roommate that I was living with, she was a lot older Colombian lady, and she also was really into meditation. So like we would share, like we would meditate, um, and also share like what we're experiencing. And we had support. Like I had support during that whole time. I was really connected with Valentina, my wife, and we just supported each other throughout that whole time. And it was really like still like I was cultivating community, even though the community was changing shape. It was a lot of online community building happening, like messaging with people, having conversations with people, with family as well. And it was changing a little bit, uh, and I was able to adapt. I would say the it was clearly a time for me to slow down and integrate and start to embody a lot of what I had already learned in the last 2 to 3 years before that.
Yeah. That's you know, very different from what some other people have experienced throughout that time. And like I think it's really cool and really beautiful that you were able to do that and like take those lessons and build forward from it. And I think that says that I don't even think I know that that says a lot about you as a person and a man. And speaking of, since I know that you do a lot of work in the masculine space, what led you into that area of work, or what was the calling into helping men develop themselves?
The first initial calling was that first ceremony in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
That was definitely the initial calling. Though 2019, I sat in my first men's circle with one of my brothers, Louis, and we actually did a retreat together a few months ago. And so in that circle, it was really powerful. Like it felt for the first time I was able to fully express myself and also fully listen to other men share their challenges and really be vulnerable, be honest and authentic and raw. And I could feel the power of doing this. Well, what would happen if we all just kept doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And so like 2020, when the things were all shut down, that idea was already in place in my being, in my soul. I wanted to do this already.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to do it online to start, to like create a network where people could come together, connect, share from the heart, express themselves. And I actually called this community my wolf pack, and it got some momentum. And something I realized is that I left it open to both men and women, and I got a chance to really experience and see like what worked, what didn't work, and
Mm-hmm.
where I see it now, that wolf pack has turned more into a men's circle and
Mm-hmm.
a men's mastermind. And that's really what I'm focusing a lot of my energy into right now, is cultivating more of a men's mastermind and really focus on the mental emotional aspect of things, because traditionally our forms of relating to brotherhood and to community as men is connected with sports, athletics.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to do something that was more about more connected with the heart, more connected with healing. And so, yeah, so I've been doing that for the last 3 months, really like more intensively, having an online men's circle,
Mm-hmm.
also doing in-person immersions, and I see that as being a big part of my coaching and my journey in my service to the collective is supporting the men in their healing process. And, how can we become even more embodied as men and become really heart-centered leaders? That's something I ask myself. And I also ask myself, what can I give to my community? And every day I look to give, like I want to give and to be of service. And in order to be of service, really be embodied in my values and things that are true to me.
Yeah, that's very beautiful, and a much needed component of society that we lack in various ways. And also thank you so much for sharing all of that journey, this adventure, this path forward into this. I know you've been doing a lot of events and retreats. Can you tell us a little bit about like what's the experience been like in continuing to facilitate and lead events and retreats for men or assisting in these? What's that journey been like, and what have you learned as you continue to walk this path? What has been the big lessons?
Mm-hmm. For me, it's been a master experiment for alchemy, like trying things out. I see myself over the last year as an alchemist, just like trying this practice, try this, let's try this. I learned, I took level 1 of Unlifted. Let's play some language games. Let's do some breath work. Let's add in cacao and other sacred medicines. Let's see how they work together. It's been a really big experiment for me. And in that experiment, I've learned that this work is essential to our society, to our communities, to the world right now. It's creating an instant impact. So I'm feeling the call to see how I can expand it even more. And I'm expanding it already. And what I discovered is that we're all looking for some sort of community. And it's really powerful because you can imagine the mirror, men and women as mirrors. So as men, as we build our communities, as we build brotherhood, build ourselves, the women also are also feeling that same call to work on themselves, to grow themselves, to connect with other sisters and learn and evolve also. So it's really powerful because a lot of people say like, why not serve all people, right? Men and women. Well, I think what happens is energetically in the spaces, there's a lot of entanglement that happens. Whereas in the men's space, I've found it's easier to work. It's more simpler, the energy within the men's healing space, and the impact always goes into their relationships. So it affects the women. So it is for all people, though I'm focused on primarily serving men.
Yeah, you have a specific solution for a specific type of person. It just those people happen to be masculine.
Yeah.
And you're talking about this ripple effect, and like I just was having another conversation with another man right before this of how much he was noting how much through his changes, even though his buddies that he used to party with and watch football with, that they may not necessarily be all that interested or curious about what he's doing on the surface, and slowly things bleed into and they start making those changes as well. Even though he doesn't have to preach it to them, he doesn't have to convert them into his way of doing things. Is that we just have this ripple effect, and that respecting that ripple becomes very important for all of us.
Yeah, yeah. And the image that's coming up for me is everyone wants a better life.
Hmm.
Everyone wants to grow themselves. Everyone wants to be able to be of service and contribute something.
Yeah.
And something that's been coming up for me in my meditations recently is like the way we can really be of service is by being embodied, right? To
Mhm.
feel this body, to feel this experience, feel our emotions. And something that I noticed is that a lot of times in my past, using sports or using athletics, that was a distraction
Mhm.
to truly feeling my emotions.
Mhm.
And really beyond that is the embodiment piece, like really feeling like, whoa, like I feel love. I feel sometimes fear.
Mhm.
I fear, I feel sadness sometimes. I feel excitement. I feel anger. All these things, like to really actually allow myself to feel has been a really beautiful gift.
Mhm.
And that's the gift of coming to a circle, coming to an immersion, showing up for a workshop, all these things, you start to feel more again.
Mhm.
And life is not necessarily that life gets easier, though the experience gets richer. And
Mhm.
that's something that I want to give to other men, is like a more rich experience of life
Yeah.
where you feel more embodied, more whole, more abundant. And abundance not only being something external, something like internal, where you feel and you think abundantly. So the story that the men tell themselves, it transforms from like scarcity more to an abundant mindset of like, okay, I am enough.
Mhm.
I'm more than enough. I am love. I am these core values.
Yeah.
You,
Well, and taking that from the idea to a possible example is you could have somebody who is a husband and a father who through this sense of scarcity or sense of not enoughness of I need to provide more for my family. I need to do more for my like I'm not doing enough to give them what they deserve. And so they can they inadvertently or not intentionally remove themselves as being present from their family by pursuing more work and feeling unfulfilled. Even though the paycheck may get bigger, they're feeling more
Mhm.
disconnected from their family, from their community, from everything around them in the service of thinking that I'm providing more and I'm actually providing less. Whereas
Mhm.
that connection to self and that connection to feeling can allow them to see what they actually do have rather than what they don't have.
Mhm.
Is that
Oh,
summarizing it correctly?
yeah, yeah. And something that I see is that this lone wolf mentality,
Yeah.
the lone wolf mentality in our society, specifically with men, it's like I'm having these emotions, like I can't show up for this circle, or
Mm.
I can't show up to work. I can't show up to family, like to these events, because I'm having these emotions and it's too much to bear at this
Mhm.
moment. And I see it as that's the perfect time to show up,
Yeah.
to be vulnerable. Vulnerability is a superpower. Showing up in those moments where there's resistance, showing up in those moments where emotions are coming up, that's a superpower. That's a complete superpower. People
Mhm.
want, the people in our lives want to see our emotions. They want to see our full selves, especially women. The
Mhm.
women in our lives want, they're like saying like, yeah, be an emotional being. Like
Mhm.
be a human, be fully yourself. And if there's a challenge, like express your challenge.
Mhm.
Uh, and that's something that's been a really big shift in perspective for me throughout this journey. Um, because growing up, traditionally, it's like something happens. for myself, I would, get in trouble, go to my room. I would be crying all alone and, digging myself into a deeper hole.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And really the point of community is like when something comes up is being able to be seen and heard and supported and loved. And so that's been something that's really a core piece to what I want to cultivate more of in my life, is that open communication and the ability to express what's coming up, challenges, express also our gratitude, express our love in a way that's free flowing. It's like, you can do this versus limiting.
Yeah. And so if there are men listening who have let's say that this is a new concept for them. Let's say that they haven't had a space where they can express themselves in this way, or that they've resisted this. Do you have any suggestions on how they can find that connection, or find ways to get into that feeling and expressing of what's coming up for them, and feel held and supported in a way that allows them to take action on their life?
Like instantly, if they're let's say they still are in the lone wolf, like they still are a lone wolf.
Yeah.
A really great practice is breath work, breathing practice. So breath work will open us up to these feelings, to these emotions. And I mean, on YouTube, there's lots of resources. You just look up guided breath work on YouTube, and you'll find like Wim Hof and other people that have these guided videos for breath work. That's usually like an instant shift. Just breathing will shift our state of being right away. And then another tool is journaling. Like after the breath work, take 10 minutes to write down what you're feeling. What are you feeling? How are you feeling? Where are you feeling it in your body? Where is tension coming up? What are your thoughts that are arising? What stories are coming from these feelings? Right? Go back, go down memory lane.
Yeah.
When's the first time you felt, sadness or this anger come up? Write out those stories. That's something that people can do by themselves if they wanted to do like the lone wolf route.
Yeah.
The lone wolf route is still available. I don't force anyone to be like, yeah, show up. Like you have to show up to this men's circle, or you have to show up to the retreat. No, I don't force anyone. I invite everyone, like, okay, if you want to be there, you'll come. And that's the other really great option, is go to a men's circle, go to a men's retreat, go to an immersion, anyone, like whichever one feels aligned with you, whether that's mine or someone else is doing it, go. And you're going to find something new about yourself. You're going to learn ways to grow yourself and do it in community. And it's very powerful. I encourage everyone also to, like, if they feel like, oh, there's no men's circles or things happening, that's just an excuse to like start your own. Just pick a date on the calendar, pick a Saturday, a Sunday, pick a time, pick a location, and invite your closest friends and, start a fire. There you go. You have a men's circle.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion for any of the men listening, of like, yeah, if it's lacking in your life and it's something that you were looking for, why not start it? There's a sense in many of us of, well, who am I to host the men's circle? This imposter syndrome or beginner syndrome, whichever you want to call it. In reality, it's just a gathering. It's like,
yeah,
like there can be deep supportive components of this, and those things can come over time, and get the reps in of simply meeting around the fire, or meeting for a workout, or meeting for a walk, even something productive, something that goes beyond the typical beer and sports on a Sunday afternoon.
Exactly. We already have time off traditionally, like in our week on Saturday and Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, pick a time, pick a day, invite your brothers, your closest friends that are men, and the circle can start with just you and another man, like another friend, and it can expand from that to, 3 people, 3 to 5, 5 to 10. That 10 is a really good group. You're going to learn a lot from each other, be able to share your own knowledge, wisdom of life, and also resources, and build together. So it doesn't need to be something like huge. It can be something small and really deeply impactful also.
Yeah, that's super cool. And that's empowering for many of us that could be listening, who may be in spaces where these in-person gatherings are not currently being served, or if we're looking for the in-person versus a virtual version of it. So yeah, this is so much cool information. I know you're still on your travels. Where are you currently? Where are you headed to?
So I'm outside of Philadelphia in Paoli, Pennsylvania, and we just held a really beautiful men's immersion here on the weekend. We dove into amazing practices, like we had a cacao ceremony. We did some story work and shadow work using the lifted method. And we also did breathing practices, breath work, like getting into the body, shaking, letting go, releasing, sitting around the fire, going into the ice bath, playing music, connecting, conversations, nourishing yourself with really good food. And like that's what I envision at all these events. It's like I want it to be clear that this is what when you come into the space, this is what you're inviting into your life: more abundance, like abundance in time, abundance in your emotions, abundance in your mindset, and also community. So so that's been a really big piece of what I want to create, what I'm already creating also, and where I'm going. So I'm actually heading next to New Jersey, and I'm reconnecting with family, seeing my grandma that just moved back to New Jersey. And I'm planning to be at the end of the month in Boston and holding a small event with brothers, with friends also. And this one's really, it's not like a big public event. It's really just friends that want to gather to heal, to grow, and reconnect. So it's like purely in alignment with my soul. And so it's becoming a tradition also, because we did this last year at the same weekend, the Halloween weekend. And it was one of the highlights of my last year. And I think it's going to be something really special this year also.
That sounds super cool. And that's amazing that it's becoming an annual thing, and something to look forward to. So I'm so excited for you to get into that and continue on your travels. Before we wrap up for today, any final thoughts or anything that you would like to let the listeners know about of what you've got going on?
Specifically, if you're interested, if you're feeling called to brotherhood, to being in community with other like-hearted men, other leaders, I have a mastermind circle, a mastermind group that's completely free. everything that I do on coaching level at this moment, that's group, is very like low ticket in the sense like it's very open. You can join. There's not a big investment. The biggest investment right now is your time showing up and wanting to align with other men. So easiest way to get connected is by reaching out to me directly and have a conversation. Which I can, so my Instagram also, so it's just my name, Zach Barney, ZachBarney.LM. And that's one way you can get connected. It's just by having conversation. I'm very, very simple these days. The other way also, I am doing a collaboration in November for anyone that's interested. It's a 30-day path of empowerment for men. So it's a 30-day challenge. And in this 30-day challenge, it's an opportunity to do some of the things that we talked about in this conversation on an online setting, and to do it with other men and to work on yourself, to grow yourself. And really, it doesn't matter where you're at in the journey. You choose one goal that you want to commit to for 30 days. And in that, you're supported, you get to experience a glimpse of brotherhood, community, and co-creation. So both of those are ways that you can, get connected and start cultivating your values as a man and start cultivating brotherhood also. That's the easiest way to start.
Fantastic. Yeah, we will have links for ways to get in contact with Zach below in the show notes. I want to thank you so much for being on this. I'm so thankful to have gotten to spend time with you last week and getting to reconnect very shortly afterwards to have this conversation and put it out there into the world. So thank you so much, brother, for being you and for being here. And thank you.
Aho.
Yeah. Until next time, folks, the most important thing is to stay strong, and more importantly is to stay weird. See you, folks.